Hello, hello, Ute here of Trans Widow Ute Hagen YouTube channel with sesame cookies. And today's recipe, the peanut butter cookies with a little chocolate center. And I'm just going to quickly go through the peanut butter cookies recipe. It's adapted from The Joy of Cooking, my very tattered copy. And it is 1/2 a cup of brown sugar, and I do not use the additional 1/2 a cup of uh, granulated sugar. I just use the 1/2 a cup of brown sugar because of the chocolate chips on top. It doesn't need so much sweetening. 1/2 a cup of butter, softened. You mix those two. You add 1 egg, a cup of peanut butter, which I suggest you get to room temperature. It's easier to mix in. 1/2 a teaspoon salt, 1/2 a teaspoon baking powder, and 1 1/2 cups all-purpose flour. And they say to add vanilla, and I didn't. I think I put in a teaspoon of cinnamon. And then I added 1/3 of a cup roasted, lightly salted, chopped up peanuts. Because even though I use chunky peanut butter, I really like it to be very peanutty. And so that is the list of ingredients. And you roll them in balls and press them with a fork. I just use a big serving fork and don't do the crisscross. And then any small thing that you have to press a depression into the middle of the cookie. I make more of a little depression for the 2 chocolate chips. These were dark chocolate chips that are the bigger size that they sell. And of course, if you happen to have the small chocolate chips, then just after they've baked for 15 minutes, turn off the oven. Put your little collection of chocolate chips into the center of the cookie. And then for a few minutes with the oven turned off, you put the pan back in to let the chocolate chips melt a little bit. And then I just use the back of a spoon to kind of press it in so that it has this nice little surface. And they definitely look homemade. And they're quite scrumptious and popular. And the recipe for the sesame tahina cookies, which are similar to the to the peanut butter cookies in a way, because it has tahini paste as well as butter and sesame seeds. That one is more a recipe that I developed on my own. I think I first saw it in a catalog. And so maybe tomorrow I will be able to tell you the ingredients for that. And the ingredients are in the notes. But what I really want to talk about is this article that I found at the Daily Signal from Lior Sapir, who writes a great deal about WPATH, the World Professional Association for Transgender Health, which is really a lobbying group and not a medical standards group. It's really quite shocking how there's utter and thorough conflict of interest among all of these doctors. And so there are standards from the National Academy of Medicine for identifying which researchers have a conflict of interest, meaning like, Marcy Mark Bowers, who basically owns the town of Trinidad, Colorado, and has a gender surgeries clinic there, who has made millions off of these surgeries. Why would this dude be opining about what the standards of care should be when he has a complete and utter conflict of interest? I'm wondering if we're going to hear about any lawsuits against Marcy Bowers. We do know that there are several lawsuits now against Dr. Joanna Olson Kennedy, who is becoming famous for taking 9.7 million from the National Institutes of Health to do a puberty blockers in teen children study. I think this was 4 or 5 years ago that Joanna Olson Kennedy, who is a natal female, got this money. And then she did not publish her results because the results demonstrated that 25% of the children, the subjects of the study, demonstrated much worse mental health problems, especially suicidal ideation, is my understanding. And so Olson Kennedy did not publish the results. So let's see. There are some phases of the conflict management process. They recommend having methodologists such as epidemiologists who are not involved in this so-called affirmative trans care lead the process in guarded consultation with conflicted clinicians. And basically all of the individuals who are part of WPATH are conflicted clinicians, meaning they are people who have an intellectual, personal, or financial investment in this particular kind of treatment, and that's why they are such strong proponents of what is called affirmative care, which should be called sex deletion treatment. That's what it should be called, because it deletes the healthy organs that are actually not just the sex organs. It deletes the health of organs, and not just the sex organs, but wrong sex hormones, puberty blockers, all affect the functioning of a healthy patient's organs. So I'm going to read you this paragraph about the second phase. The first phase is having non-conflicted people such as epidemiologists who are scientists and doctors, but they are not involved in any way personally, intellectually, or financially in the recommended treatment. And this has to do with how they, the WPATH, developed and published SOC 8, which is Standards of Care version 8, which came out recently with no age restrictions at all for when a child should be or could be prescribed puberty blockers, that is gonadotrophin agonists, and or wrong sex hormones, that is testosterone for natal females and estrogen for natal males. In the second phase of the conflict management process, guideline committees review and decide how to manage candidates' conflict of interest disclosures. Optimally, the National Academy of Medicine states, guideline development groups should not have conflicted members. So, in other fields of medicine, doctors like Marcy Mark Bowers are just kicked out of that recommendation group. Excuse me. I'm finding this quite exciting. However, the most knowledgeable individuals regarding the subject matter are frequently conflicted. If input from conflicted individuals with unique knowledge is needed, National Academy of Medicine recommends that committees engage such individuals as consultants and reviewers, but not as members of the guideline development group. If the committee nevertheless feels the need to bring conflicted members into the group itself, these should represent not more than a minority. So the truth is, WPATH is a lobby group that represents the interests of the pharma corporations and the interests of huge profiteering sex trait deletion surgeons such as Marcy Mark Bowers. WPATH acknowledges in Standards of Care 8 that its recommendations regarding the treatment of minors rely on consensus of their conflicted doctors and psychologists, consensus rather than systematic appraisal of evidence. They admit it themselves. Unfortunately, in the political interpretation areas for this particular phenomenon of gender so-called care, there is no tradition whatsoever for systematic appraisal of evidence. I hope that Congress can bring this out. I would love to see the American members of World Professional Association for Transgender Health, WPATH, be called before Congress. I will be happy to give all of the Oversight Committee members in Congress suggestions as to how to ask the questions. That's all for now. We're going to go through this amazing article about the conflicts of interest in developing care for people with cross-sex ideation. Let's go out and take our walks, and let's be the example of the healthy mind-body connection. Be well. Make some good cookies for your friends. I allow myself to eat one cookie a day. I'm doing pretty well with it. Although yesterday I also allowed myself a piece of halava. Better head out for a double walk. See you next time.